The Galactic Empire's prison ship drifted silently through the void, its luminescent hull gleaming against the black canvas of space. Inside its cold, metallic confines, Lieutenant Marcus Cain sat shackled to a chair. His hands, bound by a shimmering energy field, rested calmly on the armrests. His face was expressionless, but his sharp eyes missed nothing. Two alien guards stood nearby, their elongated forms clad in the sleek armor of the Empire. They spoke in hushed tones, occasionally glancing at Marcus as if he were some peculiar artifact. To them, he was just another captured human, weak, primitive, and irrelevant. Commander Thalrek entered the room, his towering presence radiating superiority. His translucent skin pulsed faintly as he approached Marcus, scanning him with a device that emitted a low hum. Pathetic, Thalrek muttered, his voice dripping with disdain. Your kind is barely capable of interstellar travel, yet you dare trespass in Imperial space. Marcus remained silent, his calm gaze fixed on Thalrek. This wasn't the first time he'd been underestimated. He could see it in their body language, hear it in their tone, the smug arrogance of a species that believed its technology made it invincible. He'd dealt with enemies like this before. Thalrek leaned closer. We know why you're here, he said, his glowing eyes narrowing. You were sent to spy on us, to gather information about our latest weapon. Foolish. You'll tell us everything we need to know, human, and then you'll serve as an example to your species. Still, Marcus said nothing. His mind was already working, analyzing every detail of his surroundings. The guard's armor had weak points near the joints. The security system relied heavily on automated protocols, which meant it could be exploited. The interrogation device Thalrek held looked fragile. One sharp movement, and it could be turned into a weapon. Frustrated by the lack of response, Thalrek gestured to one of the guards. Begin the neural probe. The guard activated a machine that hummed ominously as tendrils of light extended toward Marcus's head. Marcus braced himself. Years of Navy SEAL training had prepared him for this. He focused his breathing, compartmentalizing his thoughts to create a mental maze that would frustrate and confuse the probe. As the machine attempted to dig into his memories, Marcus fed it a stream of irrelevant images and nonsensical data. To the aliens, it was as if his mind were a chaotic, impenetrable storm. Thalrek's frustration grew. How is this possible? He snapped. He's resisting the probe. The guards exchanged nervous glances. This human was unlike any they'd encountered before. Thalrek leaned in, his voice a harsh whisper. You think you can withstand us forever? You'll break eventually. They all do. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm and steady. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Thalrek sneered, dismissing the warning. But in that moment, Marcus knew he had the advantage. They saw him as insignificant, but that arrogance would be their undoing. Marcus sat motionless in his cell, his mind racing as he assessed every detail of his surroundings. The cell was constructed of sleek, seamless metal, with no apparent weaknesses. The shimmering energy barrier at the entrance pulsated in rhythmic waves, and the single surveillance orb in the corner swiveled lazily, its lens scanning for any hint of resistance. He had studied the guards during their rotations, noting their casual movements and over-reliance on their advanced equipment. They carried energy weapons, but their posture suggested they had little experience with hand-to-hand combat. Their confidence was their weakness. Leaning back against the cold wall, Marcus replayed the sequence of events leading to his capture. The aliens had searched him hastily, discarding a small metallic fragment he'd hidden in his boot. To them, it was just a piece of debris, but Marcus had intentionally concealed its true nature. A microtool capable of disrupting low-level energy fields. He shifted slightly, feeling the comforting weight of the fragment tucked into the seam of his uniform. Timing was everything. He waited until the surveillance orb's lens turned away and slipped the tool into his palm. A few quick adjustments later, he activated the device, its tiny mechanism emitting a faint hum. The energy field around his restraints flickered briefly before dissolving. Marcus rubbed his wrists, keeping his movements slow and deliberate to avoid drawing attention. His eyes flicked to the cell's control panel near the barrier. The Empire's technology was advanced, but it shared a common flaw with all overly complex systems. It was predictable. Using the microtool, Marcus accessed the panel, bypassing its intricate security protocols. The barrier shimmered and vanished silently. He stepped out into the corridor, his bare feet making no sound against the polished floor. The air was heavy with an artificial sterility, and the faint hum of machinery echoed around him. He moved swiftly but cautiously, ducking into shadows as patrols passed. Every step was calculated, every movement rehearsed in his mind. Reaching a storage room, Marcus slipped inside and searched for anything he could use. He found a utility belt with a multi-tool and a small energy blade. Not perfect, but it would do. He attached the belt and pocketed the blade, his instincts sharpening with every passing second. The facility's layout was becoming clearer. The guards' movements followed a rigid schedule, leaving gaps he could exploit. He mapped out an escape route in his mind, identifying weak points in the security grid. Suddenly, an alarm blared in the distance. Marcus tensed. Had they discovered his escape already? No, it was too soon. More likely, it was a routine check or a system error. Either way, he knew he had limited time. He moved quickly, disabling cameras and locking doors behind him. His actions were methodical, leaving no trace for the Empire to follow. Each step brought him closer to his ultimate goal, finding and neutralizing the weapon that had brought him here. Failure wasn't an option. The containment chamber loomed before Marcus, a massive structure reinforced with layers of alien alloy. Inside, the weapon emitted a steady, ominous pulse, its energy rippling through the air like heat waves. Marcus approached cautiously, scanning the chamber for security measures. As expected, it was guarded by both automated defenses and a squad of elite soldiers. He crouched behind a console, analyzing the situation. The automated turrets moved in a predictable pattern, and the guards were stationed at key entry points. They communicated in short, clipped bursts, clearly on edge. Marcus could feel the tension. They were aware of his presence but had no idea where he was or what he was capable of. He pulled a small device from the utility belt he'd taken earlier, a portable signal disruptor. With a few adjustments, he activated it, causing the turrets to sputter and freeze in place. The guards reacted immediately, their focus shifting to the malfunctioning systems. It was the opening Marcus needed. He moved swiftly, striking the nearest guard with precision. The alien crumpled silently, and Marcus grabbed his weapon, a high-powered energy rifle. He fired a controlled burst, taking out 2 more guards before retreating into the shadows. The remaining soldiers shouted commands, their voices tinged with fear. Marcus used the chaos to his advantage, weaving through the chamber and setting traps with the stolen multi-tool. He rigged explosive charges to the power conduits, careful to place them where they would cause maximum damage. Each step brought him closer to the weapon, but the guards were regrouping, their movements more coordinated now. One alien, larger than the rest and clad in heavier armor, stepped forward, barking orders. He was clearly their leader, and his presence seemed to steady the others. Marcus watched as they formed a defensive perimeter around the weapon, their weapons trained on every possible entry point. Marcus didn't hesitate. He fired a burst of energy shots at a nearby console, causing it to explode in a shower of sparks. The guards instinctively turned toward the noise, giving Marcus the distraction he needed. He darted through the confusion, taking out another guard with a quick strike before disappearing again. The leader shouted in frustration, firing wildly into the shadows. Marcus smirked. They were panicking, and panic led to mistakes. He activated another explosive, this time targeting a structural beam. The resulting explosion sent debris raining down, forcing the guards to scatter. Now exposed, the weapon stood vulnerable in the center of the chamber. Marcus sprinted toward it, dodging stray shots and using the chaos to his advantage. He reached the control panel and began overriding the system. The weapon's core pulsed violently, its energy output spiking as Marcus initiated the overload sequence. The leader charged toward him, but Marcus was ready. He turned, firing a single shot that hit the alien square in the chest. The armored figure stumbled, collapsing with a guttural roar. Marcus turned back to the console, his fingers flying over the controls as the weapon's core reached critical levels. The chamber shook violently as the overload completed. Marcus sprinted for the exit, the sound of alarms and explosions echoing behind him. The mission was nearly complete, but he knew the hardest part was still ahead. Getting out alive. The facility was collapsing around him, alarms blaring and fire suppression systems spraying streams of vapor. Marcus sprinted through the maze of corridors, his mind calculating every move as debris rained down. The chain of explosions had destabilized the entire sector, but he knew he had minutes at most before the Galactic Empire's reinforcements arrived. He paused briefly to check a stolen datapad, pulling up a map of the facility's escape routes. The closest hangar bay was heavily guarded, but it was his best shot at securing an escape pod. He adjusted his path, slipping through a side passage and disabling another surveillance drone with a quick slash of his blade. As he neared the hangar, the distinct sound of boots echoed ahead. A squad of guards was on high alert, scanning every corner for signs of him. Marcus crouched in the shadows, his breathing steady as he assessed their formation. They were moving cautiously, weapons raised, their tension palpable. He reached into his belt and pulled out a compact explosive device, one of the few tools he had left. Setting the timer for 5 seconds, he tossed it into a storage crate nearby. The explosion sent a shockwave through the corridor, throwing the guards into disarray. Marcus moved quickly, using the confusion to strike. The first guard fell to a precise strike to the neck. The second managed a wild shot, which Marcus dodged before disarming him and using the stolen energy rifle to neutralize the remaining 3. The squad was down, but Marcus knew more would be coming. The hangar was vast, filled with sleek alien crafts and bustling with activity. Technicians and guards scrambled to secure the area, unaware of Marcus's exact location but clearly anticipating his arrival. He scanned the room, spotting a small, unguarded transport pod near the far wall. Moving with purpose, Marcus slipped past the chaos, using the shadows to stay undetected. He reached the pod and quickly accessed its controls. The interface was alien, but his training and previous encounters with the Empire's tech allowed him to navigate it. Within moments, the pod's systems hummed to life. Just as he prepared to launch, a loud roar echoed through the hangar. A towering alien, clad in ornate battle armor, stepped forward, flanked by 2 heavily armed guards. The commander raised his weapon, his voice booming with authority. "Surrender now, human. You cannot escape." Marcus didn't reply. Instead, he activated the pod's shielding system and fired a burst from the pod's onboard cannon. The blast forced the commander and his guards to scatter. Taking advantage of the distraction, Marcus launched the pod, its thrusters igniting as it shot out of the hangar and into the void of space. As he navigated through the debris field, he transmitted a final message to the Empire's command network. His voice was calm, but the underlying message was unmistakable. "This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. Consider this a warning. Next time, we won't just escape. We'll come for you." The pod accelerated into the darkness, carrying Marcus and the vital intel he had risked everything to retrieve. The mission was over, but the war was just beginning.